What if events went differently, and Anakin Skywalker never became Darth Vader? What if in the darkest chapter of the galaxy, one choice, one moment, changed everything? Welcome back, my fellow watchers of the multiverse, to another brand new episode. I'm Max Charlebois, aka MissedThePart, and you're watching Star Wars Week, our biggest themed event yet, packed with twists that shape the entire saga from the ground up. In today's reimagined timeline, the tragedy of Revenge of the Sith takes a different turn. Anakin doesn't fall. He doesn't ignite his blade against the Jedi. He doesn't march on the temple. Instead, he resists the whispers of Palpatine, confides in Padmé and Obi-Wan, and together they uncover the Sith Lord's deception before it's too late. With his loyalty intact, Anakin becomes the Jedi's greatest weapon against the darkness, and the fate of the galaxy takes a dramatic new path. The Clone Wars end differently. The Republic is reborn, and the name Darth Vader is never spoken. But peace comes at a cost, and even without the suit, Anakin's destiny as the Chosen One still demands a heavy price. Before we dive in, make sure to check out our new multiverse merch drop that actually just came out. Again, I almost laugh every time I say it, but it's Grand Theft Kenobi. From the high ground to the hood. Ever wondered what would have happened if Obi-Wan went to Grove Street? Now you don't have to imagine that anymore because we made it a reality. So make sure to check out the MissedThePart 4th wall and grab your gear now. Use promo code WHATIF to get 10% off, and grab it now before it's gone, because once this week ends, it's gone for good and it won't be coming back. And to all of our amazing Patreon supporters and YouTube members, thank you. Your support makes these massive stories possible. And if you want behind the scenes content, early access to episodes, and a chance to have your what ifs turned into real videos, hit that join button or check out us on Patreon. We even do live streams where we write your ideas into full stories. So join the multiverse movement. That being said, let's step into a galaxy where hope never burned and the Chosen One fulfilled his destiny. The engines of the Resolute roared over Utapau's pale skies, twin thrusters searing streaks of flame across jagged rock canyons. Jedi Generals Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker stood in the hangar bay, lightsabers clipped, armor scratched, and minds already halfway to war. You know, Obi-Wan said as he adjusted his wrist gauntlet, I had hoped after the war we might get a day off before plunging into another death trap. Anakin cracked a slight grin. You said that after Geonosis, and again after Christophus. Yes, well, I meant it both times. The wind howled outside as the gunship prepped for deployment. They were headed for General Grievous, the last remaining separatist warlord not yet cornered, his droid armies decaying as the Republic surged. But something was different. Anakin was calm, not arrogant, not bitter. No paranoia in his voice, no flickers of darkness in the Force. The war was ending, and for once, he wasn't afraid of what came after. As they flew toward the landing zone, Obi-Wan leaned back, watching the horizon. You've changed. I'm at peace, Anakin replied. Obi-Wan narrowed his eyes. Really? Don't act so surprised. I've been talking to Master Yoda, meditating, training in stillness. Stillness? Obi-Wan smirked. You? It's overrated. The landing was rough. Blaster fire erupted immediately as they disembarked. Grievous's guards fought savagely, clawing at every inch of ground, but the Jedi were faster, cleaner, purposeful. Anakin and Obi-Wan cut through the droids in tandem, a blue and green blur of synchronized precision. Grievous fled. They gave chase. The hunt lasted hours, through towers, sinkholes, and collapsing walkways. Eventually, they cornered him in a collapsing Durasteel hangar. Grievous leapt, claws extended, rage hissing from his voice modulators. "I'll mount your skulls on the bridge of my cruiser." Anakin didn't hesitate. Neither did Obi-Wan. Together they disabled him. Anakin severed 2 arms. Obi-Wan dismantled his legs. Grievous roared, dragged himself toward an escape shuttle. But Anakin stepped in front of him. "It's over." And for once, he didn't kill in anger. Cut to Coruscant. Thunder rumbled across the skyline. Inside the Jedi Temple's most secure vault, Count Dooku sat bound in a force-restraining chair. Cybernetic cuffs bound his arms. Clones guarded every door. Yoda entered, alone. For a long time, the 2 former master and student simply stared at one another. Neither blinked. "Come to gloat," Dooku rasped. Yoda sat across from him, cane folded on his lap. "Come to listen." Dooku scoffed. "Then you're a fool." "A fool I was. Trusted too much. Assumed too little." A pause. "He was going to kill me, wasn't he?" Dooku said quietly. "I saw it in Skywalker's eyes. He wanted to, but he didn't." Yoda nodded once. "Changed, he has." "Then perhaps it's not too late for any of us." Yoda tilted his head. "Tell me, Dooku, who is Darth Sidious?" Dooku looked at the floor. "You already know." "Say it." Silence. Then, "Chancellor Palpatine." The room seemed to exhale. Yoda's eyes closed. Always, it was him. "He used us all," Dooku murmured. "Used the Republic, me, the clones, the Jedi. And now that his prize has come of age, I'm no longer needed." Hours later, the council gathered. Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, Shakti, Yoda, and Obi-Wan. Anakin stood before them. Dooku named him. "It's Palpatine. It was always Palpatine." They debated heavily. The council wrestled with the consequences. "He controls the Senate, the courts," Windu said. "Removing him without evidence risks open rebellion." "We have a confession," Obi-Wan argued. "We have motive, years of war, manipulated. And the people love him," Ki-Adi added grimly. "He ended the war, gave them peace." Yoda looked to Anakin. "Believe in him, they do, as you once did." Anakin nodded, but not anymore. Later that evening, inside the temple, the Jedi gathered once more, not to debate, but to vote. Anakin Skywalker stood quietly at the edge of the Grand Council chamber. Yoda raised a hand. "Knight Skywalker, for service beyond duty, for wisdom, restraint, and truth." He paused. "We grant you the rank of Master." Anakin said nothing for a moment, then bowed, and smiled, not with pride, but peace. In the shadows of the Chancellor's office, Palpatine stood before the wide cityscape, arms folded. He had heard everything. Through spies, through subtle tremors in the Force. "So, the pieces move faster than I expected." Behind him, 2 red guards awaited his order. Palpatine's fingers twitched. "Then it's time to burn the board." He pressed a small button beneath his desk. Across the galaxy, Order 66 was activated. The signal came in silence, across the stars, across war zones and Republic strongholds. Clone commanders received a phrase they didn't understand and obeyed without hesitation. "Execute Order 66. In 1,000 flashes of blaster fire, the Jedi Order began to burn. But this time, not all of them fell. Inside the Jedi Temple, Anakin Skywalker stood before the war table, reviewing reports of Separatist remnants. There was no blood on his hands, no doubt in his heart, only purpose. He had fulfilled his mission.
Grievous was dead. The war was ending.
And then the temple shook. Alarms began to sound. Troopers rushed the halls, guns already raised, eyes focused, emotionless. One of them turned into the archive room, rifle drawn. Anakin stepped back instinctively. His saber ignited in a single breath. "Commander?" he asked, the word hanging between them like an accusation. The clone said nothing. The shot came fast. Anakin was faster. 3 bodies fell within seconds. The scent of scorched armor filled the ancient library as Anakin burst into the corridor, already shouting into his comlink, warning Obi-Wan, calling to Shakti, to Yoda. No answer. The temple was already under siege, and this time Skywalker was not the weapon of its fall. He was the shield. Across the plaza, blaster bolts screamed against the pillars of the Hall of Harmony. Jedi younglings ran through smoke and rubble as clone fire cut through the statues of long-dead masters. Some of the knights fought back, some were already dying, but none of them were expecting what came next. Count Dooku emerged from the shadows. The guards outside his containment wing had already been executed. The clones sent to secure the prisoner had their orders. But Dooku had always been faster than orders. The cuffs had shattered. His hands, rebuilt and covered in durasteel mesh, were already glowing with power. He moved like wind, his blue saber returning to his hand with a snap hiss that hadn't been heard in 2 decades. His first stroke was defensive, his second, merciful. He didn't revel in it. He wasn't there to reclaim glory. Dooku moved through the halls like a storm given purpose. For the first time in far too long, he fought for something other than himself. And deep inside the chaos, when no one else could hear him, he murmured, "Forgive me, Qui-Gon." Somewhere in the Force, he felt the warmth of a presence he hadn't touched since Naboo. And it gave him strength. He moved through the burning temple, covering retreating younglings, dueling clone captains and squads. His blade never hesitated, but his face, his eyes, they carried sorrow. For every swing was against a war he helped create, a lie he once believed in, a machine he helped build. At the center of the temple, Jedi were forming defensive lines. Obi-Wan arrived first, soaked in ash and sweat, cutting down a cluster of troopers as he leapt to the High Council chamber. Mace Windu followed moments later, rallying remaining temple guards to sweep the upper spires. Anakin appeared last, saber drawn, boots soaked in blood, fury in his eyes. But not the fury of the dark. This was the fury of clarity. He moved through the fallen archives, slicing through what would have killed him in another timeline. He passed the main meditation hall and saw them. A dozen clones surrounding a single old man, Dooku, bleeding, coughing, still standing. The former Count of Sereno held his ground, saber low. His legs shook, his breathing hitched. He was finished, but not yet dead. He looked up. Anakin stood at the far end of the hall. Their eyes met just once, and Dooku smiled. He raised his saber one last time. Blaster fire erupted. Anakin surged forward in a blur of blue, but it was too late. Dooku dropped to his knees, saber falling from his hand, still lit, humming softly as it rolled. He died looking toward the stained glass dome of the temple he had once left behind, whispering his old master's name, lips curling into peace. There were no last words, only stillness. Anakin stood over him, and for the first time bowed his head not in mourning, but in gratitude. The man had died saving Jedi. And something in the Force had changed. By nightfall, the clones had been purged from the temple. Yoda arrived from the Senate complex, robes singed, his brow furrowed with quiet fury. He and Anakin stood at the top of the grand steps, looking down at the fires still smoldering across the plaza. The signal came from within the Chancellor's office, Yoda said softly. Anakin nodded. I know. They said nothing more. Obi-Wan joined them moments later. Behind him, Mace Windu arrived with a squad of survivors, masters and knights alike. And with them came purpose. Palpatine had revealed himself, not in words, but in action. He had struck first, but the Jedi were still standing, and now they would answer. The city was trembling. Coruscant, once the jewel of the Republic, sat hushed beneath a sky of roiling storm clouds. The towers of the Senate cast long shadows, and the once glowing streams of speeders seemed to slow, uncertain, as if the city sensed what was coming. Inside the Chancellor's office, the silence was suffocating. Sheev Palpatine stood at the center of the Grand Chamber, the massive transparent steel window casting him in pale blue light. The Senate tower below flickered with activity, no longer filled with senators, but clone troopers and black-robed bureaucrats loyal to nothing but fear. He could feel them now. Anakin, Kenobi, Windu, Yoda, the survivors, the believers. The final flickering flame of an order he had spent a lifetime reducing to ashes. He wasn't afraid, but he was disappointed. His fingertips brushed against the edge of his desk as he reached under it, activating the silent perimeter lock. Blast doors hissed, closed. Defense turrets retracted from the ceiling corners. Holo projectors flared to life, blinking red with incoming battle data. His empire wasn't falling, it was being stolen. The Jedi came through the upper lift shaft, no announcement, no preamble. Mace Windu entered first, lightsaber already in hand. Obi-Wan followed close, his expression hard but composed. Yoda said nothing as he walked across the chamber, cane tapping against polished floor. And at the rear, clad in simple robes without armor, eyes full of clarity and pain. Anakin Skywalker. Palpatine turned slowly. Masters, he said with a faint smile. And Skywalker. No one answered him. Yoda stepped forward. Truth revealed, it has been. Your mask. Broken. Palpatine gave a small laugh, barely audible. Then you've come to kill me. No, Obi-Wan said firmly. We came to end the war. Palpatine's smile twisted into something colder. Same thing. His arm moved. The sabers ignited, one red blade in his hand, the second hidden beneath his sleeve. The entire room ignited in a blast of force energy as Palpatine struck first, surging toward Mace with impossible speed. Their blades clashed in a storm of light, sending sparks flying. Obi-Wan intercepted the second saber, locking Palpatine's left arm as Anakin flanked him from the right. It was war. No formality, no speeches. The duel unfolded like a hurricane in a glass room. Yoda stood back, watching, calculating. He had fought Sidious before and lost, but this time they were not alone. Palpatine spun, his blades crackling against blue and green. Mace deflected a killing strike, driving the Sith Lord backward, while Obi-Wan dropped low, slashing at his legs. Anakin came from behind, his saber a blur of blue energy, but Palpatine turned with unnatural reflexes, throwing Anakin across the room with a blast of lightning. Anakin hit the wall hard, harder than expected. But he got up. His face had changed. No more doubt. Palpatine turned just in time to catch Yoda's leap, green blade screaming toward his chest. He blocked it barely, and Yoda spun away midair, landing with grace. Now all four Jedi advanced at once. For the first time, Sidious stepped back. "Do you know what you're doing?" he hissed. "Do you know what you're destroying?" "The Sith," Mace growled. "The war, the fear, all of it." "You're fools," Palpatine spat. "You think this ends with me?" Anakin lunged. Palpatine caught his blade with a parry, but Anakin twisted, kicked, and drove him down. The Emperor hit the floor, cape pooling like blood beneath him. Anakin raised his saber, but Yoda raised his hand. "Stop!" Anakin froze. "He must answer for what he has done," Windu insisted. "He will," Yoda replied, "but not in pieces." Palpatine breathed heavily. His eyes darted, his fingers twitched. He was calculating. He still had one more move. And then the floor shook, not from them, from below. From the Senate Rotunda beneath the tower, the clone legions. Explosions rocked the structure as blast doors ruptured. Palpatine smiled through bloody teeth. "You think this was the trap?" he rasped. "You never saw the real game." The room exploded inward as hundreds of clones poured in, rifles raised, boots thundering. The Jedi turned, forming a wall of sabers and shields. The fight began again. Anakin pushed Padmé's name from his mind and focused. The air was fire and screams and blaster fire. And above it all, Palpatine laughed. Until Anakin turned toward him and saw the truth in that moment. This wasn't power, it was emptiness. There was nothing behind that smile. No future, no legacy, only a man who couldn't let go. Anakin reached him in 2 strides. Palpatine raised his hand for one last strike of lightning. It never came. Anakin's saber drove into his chest. Sidious's eyes widened. The light left them, and the clones froze. The chamber fell silent. When the smoke cleared, Yoda lowered his blade. Obi-Wan moved to the edge of the chamber, breathing heavy. Mace stood at the window, staring out at a skyline that seemed somehow cleaner. Anakin stood over the Emperor's body. He didn't move. Obi-Wan stepped beside him. "It's over." Anakin shook his head slowly. "No," he said quietly. "Someone else is watching." Somewhere in the Outer Rim, on a forgotten moon scorched by the Clone Wars, a ship lifted from the ruins. Inside it, Maul watched the holophete of the Chancellor's death. He smiled. No longer a shadow, now an heir. And that is going to be it for What If Anakin Skywalker Never Turned to the Dark Side in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. Now, what do you think would have happened and what would have changed? Now, I do want to give a massive shout out to all of the watchers of the multiverse for supporting Star Wars Week. It's been absolutely phenomenal, and I can't thank you guys enough. This has been the biggest themed week yet, and I know that it's only going to go up from here. So again, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn those notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. But that being said, make sure to grab your Grand Theft Kenobi merchandise from the high ground to the hood. It's only available for 1 week only. But anyways, as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. Take care and have a fantastic day. Peace out.